Web design actually focuses on just what you see, which is the design of the page, how it looks, and the user experience. The layout of the page, aesthetics, how beautiful it is, that's web design. Meanwhile, web development is a completely different thing. It sometimes includes web design, but it also has other parts to it. So it also involves coding and technical implementation to make the design functional, which basically turns the visual design into a working website using programming languages like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP. So what this basically means is that with web development, you are focusing on not just what you see, but the behavior of the website. When you click a button, sometimes something happens. The design does not cover that. That is part of the functionality of the website or the button or whatever part of the web page that you're interacting with. Importance of web design. Well, a well-designed website is very intuitive, easy to navigate, and it provides a positive experience for visitors, leading to increased engagement and satisfaction. The first thing is first impressions. When you have a web page, it serves as the first point of contact between the website and the person visiting the website. So it's very important for that web page to look nice and be easy to navigate. So that's where this comes from, first impression. Next is good design. Good design involves not just how it looks, but how it feels when the person or the user is interacting with the website. Third item is when the website looks well, it creates credibility and trust. Because if you have a perfectly designed web page, it speaks to your ability as the person who owns the web page. It inspires confidence in whoever it is that is visiting that web page. So yes, that's where credibility and trust comes in. Number 4, we have brand identity and credibility, which also kind of puts into place some of what we have in number 3. But the whole brand identity part is the key factor here, because as a brand, or maybe not always a brand, maybe a government agency, whatever it is that the website is representing, it has an identity. Sometimes the first point of that identity is the logo. So if you have a well-designed logo, for example, it will appear everywhere in your website. It creates that trust that, okay, I'm the right website and everything is good. Okay, so we have characteristics of good and bad web design. A good web design has clean layouts, easy navigation, and fast load times. Easy navigation is, I think we've already discussed the clean layout part previous slides, but easy navigation is also very important because a website usually consists of more than just one web page. So it's very important for whoever is using this website to be able to go back and forth to whatever part of the website that they need to be visiting or whatever they're doing there. So sometimes you have a sidebar, the website, with different links to different parts of the website, so you can easily go back and forth. And that makes it very easy and nice to use. Then we also have fast load times. Now, it's easy to think that sometimes the speed at which your page loads is fully dependent on your network. So maybe if MTN or Kccl is bad, then obviously when you're opening a web page, it's going to be slow. But sometimes the way you build your website also affects that. If you build it well, you take into consideration all the factors that go into making the web page load. You can make it load faster, and the faster the website runs, the better it will be for you, because delays are always not good. So that's what goes into a good web design. On the bad side, you have cluttered pages. So your page is not well arranged, layout is not good, everything is just all over the place. It's bad, it's hard to navigate, it's hard to understand. And next, we have slow response. Like I said before, there's different factors that come into play when considering the speed of the website. So if you do not put all of that into consideration, the website will be slow. your website is slow, whoever is visiting it will have issues, and that website is not going to fulfill the function why it was put up in the first place. Thirdly, we have poor mobile adaptation. Recently, our phones are like our first point of contact for everything we do. So if you want to visit a website, most of the time, before you have time to open your laptop or go to another device, your phone is already in your hand, you open it. And the thing about web pages is we have different page sizes. So when you are creating a website, you need to put all of that consideration, because see how wide this screen is. Your phone screen is probably like from here. So this layout will not work well on the phone screen. If you load the website like this, part of the page, the rest of the side of the page is going to be outside of the view. You understand? So you need to actually, there's something called media query, where it checks the width of your screen. And then according to that width, you decide how you want the web page to display. So if you're using a smaller screen, it will rearrange everything such that it would appear well on the web page. You can see everything, and you can have access to everything. So that's where poor mobile adaptation comes in. So this basically means that a bad web design does not take into consideration that you might be opening it on a smaller device. So that's one thing to always keep in mind. Core elements of web design. Web design consists of multiple elements that work together to create an engaging and user-friendly experience. Each component plays a role in how users interact with a website. And there's different parts to it. As you can see, we have 1 and 2. Number 1 is layout and structure. The layout and structure determines the arrangement of content and design elements, which is one of the things we discussed in the previous slide. So basically, imagine this was a web page, for example. Everything needs to be in its own place. The heading needs to be at the head. The description needs to be under it. And the content needs to be arranged in a way that is easy to understand and see, actually. So that's that first point. The second, it should be intuitive, responsive, and mobile friendly. The intuitive part means that it needs to be easy to use. Someone doesn't need to, it doesn't need to be explained to someone how to use your website. It should be obvious. If there's a button that takes you to a page, the button should be very visible, and the text on the button should also give you an idea of what the button does, or it should have a text above it or under it that tells you what it does. This way, when someone is using your website, whatever it is that they want to do, whatever it is that your website does, they will be able to do it without needing much instruction or interference, or no, not interference. I can't find the right word for it, but there's just instructions from the person who puts up the website. So, for example, let's say Facebook. First time you used Facebook, for some people it's easy, for some people it's not so easy. But when you're using Facebook, when you want to go to a certain page, it doesn't take much to know that, okay, this is how you get to that page, this is how you come out, this is how you do this, this is how you do that. So it's very important for your website to be intuitive. Responsive and mobile friendly both come into the mobile thing I was talking about before. So that means for it to be responsive means if you minimize the page now and make it smaller, it will automatically rearrange everything on the page. It fits into the page size. So that's where responsive and mobile friendly comes in. Number 2, color schemes and typography. Color psychology affects user emotions and branding. So if you're working with a brand or an agency that has a logo, or they have a color code or something of the nature, if you're designing something for example, the Nigerian government, our flag is green, white, green. So it's very important to stick with that theme. You can't have green, white, green, and then a random bright red somewhere in the page. It's going to look out of place. It's also not going to look as professional as it should be. So that's where color schemes and typography comes in. Typography is how the font appears. That's the words on the page. So there's different types of fonts. This font is not the same as this font. All of these other writings, they all have their different fonts. So if you have a web page, consider this slide, for example. from here downwards to here, you notice all of these fonts are the same. This is the same as this, as this, as this. It's all the same. It has to follow a uniform pattern because they all belong to the same group, which is this web page. Content and visuals. The most important thing here is high quality images, graphics, and videos, because the website will look very, very, very bad if it's just writing. It's going to be hard to just get from the beginning to the end. So it's always, okay. So it's always nice to have images, graphics, or videos that at least give you an idea, or even if it doesn't give you an idea, at the very least, it will beautify the page. It's always nice to have a visually pleasing website. So high quality is emphasized because if you do not have high quality images, the whole website will look blurry, it won't look clear at all. So when choosing the pictures you're going to use, you have to make sure that it's the highest quality available so that the whole web page can look good because of it. Secondly, content should be relevant, well-structured, and easy to digest, which means if whatever is on the web page is something that is very informative, for example, you can't just dump it like that. You need to make sure that that information is being passed in a way that is easy to understand for whoever it is that is visiting that page. Next, we have navigation and user experience. We will start with menus. A menu is basically a part of a web page that has links to other parts of the website. So the reason why we have menus is for navigation, and if you're navigating a web page, you might need to jump to another page or another part of that same page, maybe to view some information, to fill a form, to do different things. And if there are no links to do that, it means whenever you need to jump to another part of the website, you have to maybe scroll or find a long way to get there. But it makes it very, very difficult to use your website. So it's always important to, if you have a web page, you either put it on the side here or at the top here, all the relevant links, whatever it is that is happening on this page, if there's anything that links to another page that you will need to do on this page, it's always nice to just put a link to that either on the top or on the side. Sometimes it might require something at the bottom part of the page. You can put a link that does not go to another page. It just scrolls you down to where you should be looking at. And there's a very, very common one, actually. It usually appears at this bottom right. So if you have a page that is long, I don't know if you've ever noticed, there will be a button at this side here that has an up arrow. And if you click it, you just scroll the page up to the top. So you don't have to waste your time scrolling by yourself. So it's all those little things that matter when you're building a web page, because as the saying goes, really, it's the little things that matter. So when you're building a web page, you always need to put all those things in mind because they make a big difference for whoever it is that is using it. Key web technologies. Web technologies are the building blocks of the internet. They include programming languages, frameworks, and tools that help create and manage websites. The first one is HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML is actually the building block of websites. It's the first thing that you need to know when building a website because it provides the structure of the web pages and uses elements like headings, paragraphs, and images. So let's say this was a website, or rather a web page. This right here is the heading. This is a paragraph. This is a smaller type of heading, a smaller heading, a small paragraph, or rather a list. This is a list. A list is also a type of element. So HTML is basically made of elements, and all the things I just mentioned now are elements. That's the headings, the paragraphs, the lists. We'll get to a page that actually lists out some of the most common elements that are used in web pages. So next, CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS controls the visual presentation of a web page. It defines colors, layouts, fonts. So to go deeper into that, you have your web page, you have all the actual elements in the web page, but you can't just drop an element because it's web design, and as the name implies, you need to actually design it. You might need to add color, you might need to position it in a very, very specific way. There are many different things you can do. That's where CSS comes in. So you have the elements. You might need to change this heading now to red. You use CSS for that. You might need to move it down and JavaScript. JavaScript is a programming language, actually, or rather a scripting language, and it adds interactivity and dynamic features to your website. It's used for animations, pop-ups, and form validations. So basically what this means is, before, when web design was new, most web pages were static like this. See, nothing is moving on this page. This heading is here. It's not changing. There's nothing that's popping up. There's no animations, nothing. Till JavaScript came. JavaScript allows you to manipulate all these things in real life, not real life, real time. So you can have a web page that has loaded, but JavaScript can. Okay, let me use the example of a button, for example. If you have a button that does something, as a designer, you can only design that button to look like this, but you cannot design it to act a certain way, because design only factors in how it appears. So all the things that require actions in a web page, maybe you click a button and something pops up, you click a button and something shifts to the side, that is all JavaScript. It's a script. It's like a show that is going on, and JavaScript is the language in which we tell the web page, do this or do that. So that's JavaScript. We still have more. We have PHP, Hypertext Preprocessor. It is a server-side scripting language, and it helps manage databases and dynamic content. So for this first point, server-side scripting language. In web development, there's two sides to everything. There's what you see here on your screen, and then there is where everything you're seeing is coming from. The web page is basically a file from a server. So let's say my computer is right there. The server is basically a computer. And when you access the web page, what you're doing is you're using the internet to go into that computer or that server and pull out the file from there and display it on your browser. So PHP is the language that controls what happens on the server. So before it can send any information or any page to you, the person that is using the web page, it has to decide what you want and what is going to send to you. So if you're logging into maybe a website, for example, it needs to know who you are. You put in your login details, it sends your login details to the server. The server will see that, okay, this is so person, and you need to send back the relevant information that is specific to you. So that's where PHP comes in. All of the details that you send, they are stored in what we call a database, and PHP organizes everything is sent together and sends it to you in form of a page, a web page. And this web page is the final output of whatever runs in this server-side scripting. Number 5, we have CMS, Content Management System. The CMS simplifies website creation and management. And popular CMS systems include WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. The most popular one is WordPress. I don't know if any of you have ever come across WordPress. It's always, if you're online, anything that relates to websites or website creation or anything of that nature, you always see WordPress. I don't know if you've been wondering what it is, but we will be discussing about it today. So WordPress is a content management system. And basically what it does is it simplifies this whole process of creating a website for you. Normally, if you're creating a website, you need to go and write your codes, the HTML and CSS and the JavaScript we talked about before. On a normal day, you would need to go and write all those codes yourself. But what this does for you is that instead of writing the codes, it will just give you a visual representation of all the things that those codes do or look like. And you can just drag it and drop it. So if you have this heading now, instead of going and using HTML to type this, you can just go on WordPress, you can just pick any heading, you can drag it, and you can just drop it here. If you want to add an image, you can just drag it and drop. If you want to move something around on the page, you can drag this from here, drop it there, drag that from there, drop it here. All of these normally will take a lot of time because you need to code it, you need to go into the page, the structure of the page, and tell it, okay, no, you won't appear here, appear there. This makes it easier, drag and drop. So we will now delve into HTML, which is the backbone of the web. HTML is the foundation of every web page. It provides the structure that web browsers interpret and display. It is a markup language used to create web pages by defining elements like headings, paragraphs, lists, and nodes. This is the basic structure. This is what HTML looks like. When you start writing HTML, the first thing you need to declare is this type HTML. This basically tells the browser that, okay, this file that you are looking at, it is HTML, treat it accordingly. So if you do not have this, that's a problem. And it's pretty easy to remember, so just type HTML. The next thing you have is your HTML tag, this and this. Now, as you can see, it appears at the top and the bottom. This signifies that everything that happens in between these two tags, that is our HTML. That's what is going to be displayed. And it actually has a syntax also. For most tags, you have the opening tag and the closing tag. The only difference between the opening and close is this slash here. So when it sees regular tag, this is where it will open. Whenever it sees this one, to close. And then the content. Inside the content, you have two parts. You have the head and the body. The head finds what happens on the head is not displayed. This part of the page is not displayed. This head carries what we call metadata. And it just defines, like, for example, the title of the page, my first web page. Now, if you're on the browser and you have a browser tab up here, there's usually usually the name of the website or the organization or whatever it is that the website represents. Or not, for this one, it says my first web page, which means if this was on the browser, on that tab, it will show my first web page. Now, that is not displaying on the page, showing on the tab, and we got that information from this head here. Now, there are other things that can go into the head, which we will discuss later, each in its own time. But that's it for the head. Now, next, we have body. This body, opening here and closing here, using this. This body is what displays. So starting from here, what's going to be displayed on your web page. And for this particular code, we just have a heading and a paragraph. Can you please go to the previous slide? So that heading now, if you run this, it's going to appear something like this. You have a heading saying, welcome to my website, and a paragraph saying, this is simple HTML. So if you run that, you have a heading here that says whatever it is inside that heading tag, and you have a paragraph that says whatever is inside the paragraph tag, and that is so. HTML is actually relatively simple. I believe it's the simplest of all the languages because you can just dump in whatever you want. You just find the elements that you're trying to create, and then you just put in the content of that element. Like I was saying before, structure. But first, why is HTML important? It's important because it provides a structured layout for web content. It works with CSS and JavaScript to create interactive web pages. Now, the common HTML tags, like I said, there's headings. There are 6 types of headings, depending on size. You have page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, and page 6. Page 1 is the biggest one, and page 6 is the smallest one. So when you're designing your web page, sometimes you see some headings are big, some are not so big. The main one at the head of the page is usually page 1. It's like banner size. And then you go down to 6, depending on what you want to use it for. You have paragraphs, which is a paragraph. This A tag, A stands for anchor. And by anchor, we mean that you're anchoring whatever is inside this tab to something else. So it's a link. Any link you see that you can click that will take you somewhere is an anchor. All that's basically it. So this page red, inside these double quotes, you put in the link to whatever page you want to go to on this link. And this links text, if you have a link now, this tab, this whole line would appear as just links. That's all. So when you render a web page and it comes across something like this, the only thing that will display is these links, or most likely it will be underlined so that you know that it's a link. And when you click it, to go to whatever page is inside these double quotes. So that's how anchor tags work. We have image tags also, which work similar to anchor tag. So the tag name is img for image. This source here is what links it to the location of the image. So if you have the image stored in a folder named images, and the name of the image is image1, inside here you have images slash image1. It's a path to find that image. So when it sees this line of code, it will just follow that path, find that image, and display it for you. And that's how this one works. Now, lists. We have two types of lists. We have ordered lists and ordered lists. An ordered list goes down from 1, 2, 3, 4, as the name implies, it's ordered. Meanwhile, an ordered list is unordered. It's just maybe bullet points or something like that. They are listed out, but they are not specifically in any given order. CSS, styling the web. CSS, like I said before, means cascading style sheets, and it is used to style and lay out web pages, making them visually appealing and responsive. Now, CSS is a very powerful language because it can go into the web page, it can manipulate many of the things you see on the web page, the color, the size of different elements, how they behave, and all that. So it's a style sheet language that controls the presentation of HTML elements, and it defines colors, fonts, layouts, and animations. Now, the structure of CSS. You have selectors and properties. So, based on the way CSS works, it's not working on its own. CSS actually goes into your HTML. They stand side by side. And so CSS cannot work by itself. It can only point it to an element inside HTML. Say, for this element, do this, do that, do this, do that. So because of that, we have two sides to it, the selectors and the property. The selector targets the HTML elements that is worked on. So if you have this heading now and you want to make it red, you need to target it so that you know that, okay, this is the heading that we are working with. Meanwhile, the properties defines styling attributes like font size, background color, and all that. So let's say you want to change the color of this paragraph here. First, you need to select the paragraph. In one of the later slides, when you go deeper into it, show you how you actually do the targeting and all of that. But you need to target it and say, okay, I think there's an example here. So this P now is the selector because this is the paragraph. And as I showed you in this page, we have paragraph tags P. So if you want to start any paragraph now, you select it using just P, you just write P, and then you open these braces. These braces contain all the stylings that you want to add for that particular element. So in this case, we have color. You specify what attribute and value. The attribute is the color, and the value is blue. So if it runs this small code P color blue, it will target this paragraph, and this paragraph will turn blue, and that's it. And it's not just color; there's background color, there's different things. For example, let's not go into much detail there. It has its own section, but I believe for now that explains it pretty well. We still have more on CSS though, layout techniques, which includes flexbox, grid, and media queries. Now, apart from styling elements, CSS, like I said before, it's very, very powerful. So it can actually help you structure your whole page. If you have a complex web page and things are not just basic like this, some web pages are all over the place and it's very complicated trying to find a way to organize it all. So CSS can help you with that, starting with Flexbox. Flexbox helps you align items efficiently in a one-dimensional layout. So if you have a list of things you want to display in a web page, the web page is just blank normally. And if you add different elements, most times they will just stack up on each other. They won't arrange in the way you need them to be arranged. So you need to use the CSS layout techniques to arrange them the way you want to. So Flexbox will help you arrange items efficiently, but only in one direction. So if you're using Flexbox, you can either arrange things horizontally or vertically, and that's it. But sometimes you might need something more complex. If it's two-dimensional, maybe you need a table or something like that. That's where grid comes in. And you can actually have it go both down and sideways. It's basically just look like a table. And then we have media queries. Now, I talked about this, I touched on this before, where I said if you want to reduce the size of a web page, or if you're opening a web page on a smaller sized screen, it will need to rearrange itself in order to fit well. That's where this media query comes in. So it would actually check your device specifications and see how wide your screen is. Then, depending on how wide it is, it would rearrange it. Although that rearranging is not random, it's you, the designer, that would actually specify how you want it to be rearranged. So that's how media queries work. Now, why is CSS important? First, it enhances visual appeal and usability of a website, and it also ensures a consistent look across different devices and browsers. This is an example like I was saying. So, if this is the remember here we have selectors and properties. So this is the selector. For this piece of code now, it's selecting the body of the website, which is everything that displays on that page. That's the body. And what it's doing is there's two parts on this on the inside. We have the attributes and the value separated by a semicolon. So this is targeting the font family and it is assigning this type of font to it. So all the text that appears inside the body now, this font will be applied to them. So all of them will have exactly the same type of font. The background color is going to be, well, there's different ways to represent colors in CSS. There's hexadecimal, there's RGBA, and then you can also just use the normal name of the color. So inside here, you can actually just put red or blue or green. But the way colors work is a whole spectrum. There's each color has different shades. So with all these numbers and this format, you can target a specific color, a specific shade of any color you want. Any color out inside the spectrum, you can target it using this. So with this line of code, we are assigning this color to the background. So the whole background of that page will have that color. This color is for the text, because it's just color, not background color. So it assigns this color to the text, well, assigns this one to the whole page. Then for this other one, it targets the heading of the website, and it assigns it a different color from the rest of them. Now we are into JavaScript, which adds interactivity to the web page. JavaScript is a powerful scripting language that enhances website interactivity and functionality. The key points. JavaScript allows you to create dynamic content on the website. Dynamic content means content that changes. This text might say JavaScript now, but you might do something on the web page that will need to make this text change without having to reload the page or going to a different page that has that writing. So if you need to do anything like that, JavaScript does that for you. So it is used for animations, pop-ups, interactive forms, and more. JavaScript is actually very, very broad subject. There's so many things you can do with JavaScript, even apart from the ones that are already created and exist on your own. If anything occurs to you that you need to do on your web page, you can find a way to do it with JavaScript. So the possibilities are endless. Now, how does JavaScript enhance user experience? It allows real-time updates without reloading the page, improves responsiveness with interactive elements, and it validates user input in forms before submission. This is one we've not talked about before, so let me go into it. A form online, if you're filling a form online, there's different types of data. You have numbers, you have letters, you have alphabets, you have special characters. Now, if let's say it's a registration form and you have an input for name, names do not have numbers, they do not have special characters, they are just alphabets. And as unlikely as it seems, when people are using websites or just technology in general, you would think that it's a name that they're supposed to put in. Of course, they will only put alphabets. But sometimes you see people that will put other characters, like special characters, numbers, and at the end of the day, whoever is managing the website might check all the submissions and see that only like 50% of everything there are valid names. And if it's something that is important, let's say, for example, maybe national ID, a form for creating national IDs. If all the data that you have is incorrect or is not valid, you cannot use that data to create something as important as a national ID. If someone uses wrong format to enter their name, and there's a large data set, maybe 1,000 or let's say 50,000, because this is on a national level, let's say 100,000 people register on that form now. You can't go individually and check to make sure that the names are valid. So before the names even hits the back end, you need to validate it and make sure that the only ones that make it to your database are valid. That way, once you get your data, you know that it's good to go. So what JavaScript does is it allows you to validate all that data. It checks everything that is inputted into the form. If it's not the right type of data, it will bounce you back. And like I said, it's a scripting language, so you can even instruct it. That's why sometimes when you are filling a form and you put in the wrong data, it will actually tell you only username is allowed. If you are putting in an email and you don't add at whatever.com at gmail.com, to tell you not add at gmail.com. Because some people might, like my email is abrahambogba@gmail.com. Not everyone has the knowledge that, okay, if I'm writing an email, the at gmail.com has to be there. So some people might just now put Abraham over and think that, okay, whoever is at the back end will add the at gmail.com, but no one is there to add it. So your code, you have to put it in your code to ensure that any data that's coming in is well validated. So that's what this does. So this is an example of simple JavaScript interaction. And what this does is it's a button. And when you click the button, it changes the content of this paragraph. So let me walk you through. Okay, so I was explaining what this code does. At the top, we have a button. This part here is HTML. These two lines are HTML. We have a button and a paragraph. What we have here is what we call an attribute. And this attribute is basically because it's on the button. So this is the functionality that detects when you click that button. So on click, that's what this is. On click, when you click, it calls this function. This function is calling your JavaScript. Your script is inside the script tag. Now JavaScript, it works hand in hand with HTML. So your script can be inside your HTML file. But when you get to the script, you need to actually identify that this part of the script or this part of the file is JavaScript. So it has its own tag called script, opening tag, closing tag. Everything inside here is JavaScript. So it calls, when you click this button, it calls this function show message. And this is it here, function show message. And what this does is it goes into the document. This document is the whole actual document. It gets element by ID. It finds this particular element that is inside this double quotes. And the name of the element is message. So it goes into this whole file. It looks for whatever has this ID message. And it is this paragraph. Now, as you can see, this paragraph is currently empty. The content of the paragraph is supposed to go in between these two arrows here. So right now, this paragraph is empty. But when you click this button, it goes, finds the paragraph, and then HTML refers to whatever is inside the tags, the content of the tag. So it goes into the content of this paragraph, and it inserts this text. So when you click this button, what happens is that empty paragraph will change from being empty to showing this message, hello JavaScript. PHP, the server-side language. PHP stands for Hypertext Preprocessor. And I think the name actually gives you an idea of what it does. Hypertext, remember, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So hypertext preprocessor means it is what handles whatever it is that needs to happen on your server before it gives you a page. So if the content of that page is dynamic, it is something that can change. So for example, a user dashboard. If I log into my account, it's my name that will show on my account. If any of you logs into your account on any platform, it's your name and your own details that will show. But the page itself is still the same. So the server that is providing you this page needs to know who, or rather the details that is going to put on the page. So it needs to process whatever information you give it, which is your login details. So you log in, it takes your details, it says, okay, this is Abraham. You need to get Abraham's picture, you need to get Abraham's full details and put it on the page. So that's the processing. And by the time it's done processing, to gather everything into a page, create the page and send it to your browser and it will display it for you. So that's what PHP does. PHP is a widely used server-side scripting language designed for web development. Key points. It is open source, which means it is open for, if you are interested enough, you can actually go and it's publicly available to see how PHP works, the codes inside of it, and everything about it. And it is used to create dynamic and interactive web pages. The role of PHP in web development, it handles form submissions and processes user data. It generates dynamic content and interacts with the databases. The database is where all of that information is stored. So when you try to log in, those login details, take it, then to go into the database and basically search to see whether this information that you provided exists in that database. So it interacts with databases, and it is also used in frameworks like Laravel and CodeIgniter. All these frameworks are just, we'll get to that later. Now, databases, how PHP works with databases. PHP connects with your database and it uses it to store and retrieve data. An example of a PHP and MySQL. Okay, let me just break it up here a bit. The database exists on its own on the side, right? But to interact with that database, you need to be able to send commands to it so that it can give you back the data that you're either requesting for or trying to input into it. So it has its own language called MySQL. And when you want to communicate between your PHP and your database, you use MySQL for that communication. So this right here is a script that connects your script to your database so that anything you're doing on the website that requires data from that database, you should be able to have it to use this channel to go and get the data. So let's start from the top. PHP, or just like how HTML has its own tags, it starts with doc type HTML, then open HTML tag, and then close it at the bottom. You have something similar with PHP. You open it here using this format, PHP open and PHP close. The first line of code is the connection. This basically is a function that has all these details. Let's start here. Localhost. This right here is your host. Your host is where the database is located. It can be on a server, on your own server, or it can be on another server. But regardless, you will need to connect to it here. If you're connecting to a database that is on your own server, since it's your own server, it's local. You always use localhost. Username, password, and database. Your username is before you can access like Facebook, for example, just as an example. If you want to access Facebook, you cannot just access Facebook like that. You need to have an account. You're accessing it as so person. That's the same way that databases work. You can't just access it. You need to access it as somebody. So you need to create an account. That account will have a username, password. So what this line is saying is, look into this host. I am so person with this username and password, trying to access so database. So that's what this line does. This line is a conditional statement to make sure that this works. Because if you just set this statement now and it tries, and maybe any of these details are wrong, you need to know, because it will bounce you back, it will give you an error. And if you don't put this conditional statement, the person that is trying to log in will just keep on seeing errors and nobody will do it. So what this does is, as you can see, it starts with if this this connection, if this con has a connection error, it will kill the connection and show you the error. It will give you the full error details. It will tell you why this error is existing, why you are getting this error, so that you'll be able to fix it. But if it does not give you any error, it will just tell you connected successfully. If you get to this point, it means you are now connected to the database. If you want to get any information, updates, anything you want to do on that database will work. So that's how this code works. Please, is there anything or any part of this that you need clarification on, or should we move on? Okay, so I'll take that as a yes. Let's move on. Is it possible to get rid of this? Okay, CMS. CMS means Content Management System, simplifying the website. So, key points of CMS. CMS is a software that allows users to easily create, manage, and publish content on a website or application without needing extensive technical coding knowledge. So, you can create a website normally using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all of that. It's work fine, but you will need to know how to actually use all those languages to a deep level, because web pages are, they get more and more advanced as you go. So if you want an advanced website, you need to be at an advanced level of all these languages, because it needs all of them together, working together to be able to function properly. But what CMS does is it takes all of that knowledge, it pages it in one side, and it keeps it so that you can use it without having to know how to do it yourself. So all the designs, it will design it and keep it for you in one side. So you have a sort of canvas to work with, and you have a list of all the different packages it has created for you. So all you have to do with the CMS is click what you want and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop, so you have your full website and it's running. So, and another thing about it is it's very user friendly. So whether you are a beginner or an expert, the process is still the same. It does not matter because all the key parts of the processes have been taken care of. All you have to do is drag and drop. Now, popular CMS platforms. The most popular is WordPress. I think about 40% of all the websites in existence right now use WordPress. So if you are going to learn anyone, WordPress is your best bet. There's other ones like Joomla and Drupal. They all basically still do the same thing, but I would always still recommend WordPress. Advantages of using a CMS. First is ease of use, no coding knowledge required. Second, customization. You have themes and plugins for tailored designs. So your theme is basically the whole idea, or for example, if, like I said before about doing a government website, you're working with government colors, green, white, blue. So your whole website will need to have a corresponding theme. Maybe this whole part here will be green, white here. Maybe all this green, white. That's your theme. And WordPress has many themes that you can choose from. So all you have to do, instead of designing a whole page from scratch, you just go, you select the theme, just apply it to the whole page, and just like that, the structure and design of the page is done for you. So you have themes. Then you have plugins. Plugins are a bit different from themes because they are not just about the design. They also have functionalities. The stuff that you do with JavaScript, all those actions, all those advanced, click a button, this happens, you click that, that happens, animations, all of that. You can download plugins which are packaged, like little packages of all those codes. So if you have a specific functionality in mind that you want to add to your website, you can just go find the plugin. And as the name suggests, you just plug it into your website. You just start working like that. You don't need any of the technical knowledge to make it work. Then next, we have SEO, which is search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is a way of putting your website out there. So if you create a website, maybe you create an e-commerce website where you sell things. That website just exists on the internet, but you need people to actually come to that website. So you need to find a way to put it out there. And one of the biggest tools you can have for that is SEO, because what it does is it connects it to search engines like Google or Microsoft Bing or any other search engine. And normally, if you search on Google for maybe you want to buy something, like maybe you want to buy a pair of shoes now, and you Google buy shoes or something like that, this search engine optimization is going to add your website to the list of websites that Google is going to search. And if you do it well enough, your website will be the first thing that anybody that searches for that thing will see. So if you need your website to be really visible, you can use SEO to make sure that anybody who is just looking for your website on the internet, once they start looking for it on the internet, it's not only they are looking for your internet, they're looking for one of the services that you offer on your website, or one of the things that your website does to be easily accessible for them. CMS does that for you. Security. It also has regular updates and security patches. The way the internet works is there's a lot of malicious things flying around, a lot of people, scammers, and all sorts of things, and they target random websites. Your website may not even be something they can benefit from, but just because they are randomly searching for a wide range of websites to do whatever it is they want to do, your website might get attacked. In fact, every random website has a high chance of being attacked for one reason or another. So it's always important to have security features in place to be able to counteract it. Next, we have multi-user access, which allows multiple contributors to manage content. So if you have a website that maybe you're uploading different posts or something, or that needs to be managed by maybe a government agency, that is taking information to. Okay, let's go back to the NIN thing. Let's say you are trying to create maybe an online portal for creating NIN. There are probably going to be multiple staff managing it. So all of them, each and every person will have their own login that can access that platform directly, which means everybody doesn't have to be sharing one login. Because if that happens, then it's going to be hard to keep track of who is doing what. But if everyone has their own unique access to that platform, then it makes it so much more efficient. And that's where this multi-user access comes in. UI UX basics. Starting with UX. UX stands for user experience, and UI stands for user interface. So UI and UX design are critical for creating websites that are both functional and visually appealing. UI, which is interface, focuses on the visual elements and interactions of the product, while UX encompasses the entire user journey from initial interaction to final satisfaction. What this is saying is UI is just the design. What you're seeing right now is the UI. This is the interface. You are not interacting with this in any way. The only thing it's doing is displaying and showing you information. But that doesn't mean that it has to be done anyhow. It still has to be visually appealing. It still has to be done and structured well. While UX, on the other hand, user experience, comes in when you have a web page that you're trying to interact with. So if you're going to need to do anything, even if as small as scrolling, you need to scroll. That is something that UX comes into, because you can have scrolling effects. You can have a page that as you're scrolling, the whatever is at the bottom isn't just coming in. You have an animation that will come from the side and arrange the page alive. So that's where UX comes in. And it's not just that. It's also about the steps that a user needs to take to achieve whatever it is they're trying to do on that platform. Some platforms, some websites are very hard to use. They don't build them well. Maybe there are not enough links. You want to visit a specific page, but there's no link up here to it. So you have to find another way to get to it. User experience makes sure that everything that you're trying to do, every interaction you make with this website is done as efficiently as possible is done in as little as few steps possible to make sure that it goes seamlessly. Key principles of good UX UI design. Simplicity. It's very important to keep the design clean and user-friendly. Consistency. You have to maintain uniform styles, colors, and typography, because they all work together to give you that experience. So you have accessibility. You have to ensure usability for all users, including those with disabilities. That's another one that's very, very important. Not everyone is lucky enough to have all their senses working. Some people have certain defects, some people have eye issues, some people have, the list goes on, it could be anything. So whatever you can add to your website to make it easy for anyone that is disabled to still be able to fully interact with your website falls under UX. The more you can add, the better your website. Feedback and responsiveness. You have to provide clear visual and interactive feedback for user actions. So if you're using a website, there's a website you use that. By the time you're done doing whatever it is you're doing on the website, you get a little feedback form to tell you to rate the website or maybe add a comment or something like that. And it's very important because the people that are using your website are the ones that will be able to know for sure their satisfaction you're looking for. So if there's any part of the experience that is not optimal, it's always important for you to provide them a channel for them to let you know. So if you build it in a certain way and it's not good, and someone uses it, and he has a suggestion or he has feedback for you to say, okay, this is how this was, this is how you can make it better, then it's always important for you to make that channel available to them. Now, examples of good UI UX practices. You have intuitive navigation menus and logical page structure. Logical page structures just means that the way the page is arranged needs to make sense in as easy way as possible. So your heading will always have to be at the top. You cannot have your heading at the bottom. It does not make sense. Even the way this page is arranged, by the time you look at it, you have the main heading, you have subheading, you have another subheading, you have two sections that are talking about two separate things. So it makes it very, very easy. By the time you see it, you instantly know what the person was trying to like pass on to you. So intuitive navigation menus. If you have a navigation menu at the top, most websites you see home, about us, contact, and all those other things. Sometimes you see a section on the side with links to different pages, and it makes it very, very easy to navigate and move around the website. Next, we have mobile-friendly, responsive designs for all screen sizes, which we touched on before. And that's basically just saying if you're using it from different devices, your website should fit well and still look good regardless of the device you're using. A clear call to action. So a call to action is if maybe you have the registration page now, there's going to be a part of the page that actually tells the person visiting to register, and to usually have a register button. So I would have liked to show you examples of all these things. But I guess when I'm using my laptop, because we'll have a practical period where I'll show you some of all of these, how they are done. So the call to action always has to be there because it's going to point the visitor to what he needs to be doing on that website. If it's a registration website, you need something that will point them to the button saying, here is where you register, here is where you apply, here is where you do whatever it is you're trying to do. So that's where call to action comes in. Then we also have fast loading pages, minimal distractions. If you have a slow loading page, then whatever they are doing there, it's going to be very frustrating for them because it's going to take too much time. So the faster you can make your website, the better. Web hosting and domains. Web hosting and domain names are essential for making a website accessible. Let's start with hosting. What is web hosting? Web hosting is a service that stores website files and makes them available to the internet. Now, there was an example I used before about accessing a web page, and how that web page actually resides on a server somewhere. So everything you see online is, at the end of the day, is just a file. It's just a file that exists in a server or a computer somewhere. So your normal computers are created for personal use. So they don't make ideal servers. We have servers, actual servers. At the end of the day, server acts like a computer. It has its own operating system, but it has a different purpose. So it's operating a slightly different way from your conventional computer. So at the end of the day, though, the server just stores files. That is all. That's its main purpose. It stores all the files that you need to be accessed. So that server where the data is stored to host is hosting all the information that is to be accessed on a website. So that's what web hosting is. Types of hosting. We have shared hosting, VPS hosting, dedicated hosting, and cloud hosting. Shared hosting is the most commonly used one because first things first, servers are extremely expensive to buy and to maintain. So not all websites are large enough to justify having your own server. You might just have a small business somewhere and you just need your customers to be able to come online and just order something. So if that's the case, it wouldn't make any sense to go and spend millions buying a server just for that small website. That's where shared hosting comes. You have people who run it as a business. So you have one server that hosts multiple sites. So anyone that has a website that they need hosting for, they come and all of their files are together. That's why it's called shared hosting. The resources on that server have been shared by all the websites using it. Next, we have VPS hosting. VPS hosting is gives you more control and dedicated resources. So if you're an expert at building websites or managing websites and you want more control than what shared hosting gives to you, then you might opt in for VPS hosting because it gives you more control of the space that is hosting your website. Next, we have dedicated hosting, which gives you a full server and also give you very, very high performance. If you're running a business or anything that requires you to have your own space, you're not sharing your resources, bandwidth, storage, you're not sharing it with anybody. You just have your server. And this server is for you and you alone. However, it's a very, very expensive option because, like I said before, servers are very expensive to both buy and maintain. So that's what dedicated hosting is. The last option is cloud hosting. Now, recently, almost everything is being moved to the cloud. Even something as small as your Microsoft Office. Before, Microsoft Office was just, you just download it. I guess it's still like that to some extent. But now you have Google Docs and you have Microsoft 360. So with those platforms now, everything you do is online. If you are working with different people and there's a file you need to share, you don't need to download a file and send it. You can just share it. It's already in the cloud. It's everywhere. It's accessible from everywhere. So that's what cloud hosting is. It's scalable, it's flexible. By scalable, it means that if you need to grow that website, that business, that platform, whatever it is that is on that hosting platform, if you need to grow it to accommodate more users or more functionalities, cloud hosting is going to be able to do that for you. Okay, so now we've talked about web hosting. Let us talk about domains. What is a domain name? A domain name is a unique address for a website or an online presence. Like websites has, or rather, let me say it's like a street address, but not for streets or houses, but for websites. Users type this address into their browser in order to be able to access it. And so when you have a website, you have, like, for example, www.google.com. You have www, which is just the, the locator. After the dots, the name that comes after it is your domain name. So if, okay, let's go with Google now, for example. Google is an actual company, and you don't access Google, you use google.com. But that Google itself is your domain name, and it's what you use to access whatever it is on that URL. So choosing the right hosting and domain. This is very important because if you choose the wrong one, it's going to affect everything you do online. If you choose a web host that is slow, everyone that tries to use your website is going to be met with slow load times and frustration. It's going to be a very, very bad user experience. Security needs to be secure because, like I said before, there's always constant attacks going on the internet. Hackers, spammers, scammers are always roaming around on the internet looking for any website that is not secure. Once they find it, they'll find a way to get something out of it or to attack it, and you find yourself in a very, very sticky situation. So security is very, very, very important. Next, we have scalability. Now, if you buy web hosting, shared hosting, for example, like I said before, there's one server and they are all sharing resources. If, for example, you have the plan you're on gives you access to 10 gig of space and your business grows and you now need more than 10 gig, you need 20 gig, 50 gig, 100 gig, you need to be able to scale up that hosting in order to be able to meet your new needs. That's where scalability comes in. So you always need to make sure that any provider you are going with has the option to allow you to grow. Next, we have budgets, and this one is pretty simple. Whenever you're putting up a website, you most likely will have a budget. Funds are never unlimited, so you need to work with the one that is most affordable for you, while also providing the best resources, features for your business or platform. All right, recap and takeaways. That is the end of this section. And so far, we have covered web design principles, technologies, UI and UX, hosting, and domains. We've also talked about the importance of web design and development, the resources, and resources for further learning. This is web design. And the best place, ironically, to get more knowledge about this is on the web itself. There are countless platforms that have online learning opportunities. There's one here in Abuja where I work at called Science Academy. You can go there and register for any course and you will learn everything that you want to learn. So if you ever want to further your education, you have countless options. And that brings us to the end of this section. So is there any questions? Is there any part of the presentation that you need clarity? Go ahead. Please hold on. It's WordPress. Why not doing that? Why WordPress? Well, it's actually one very obvious reason, and that reason is the fact that it is so widely used. It's so widely used that there is nothing that you want to do on WordPress that has not been done before. So the whole idea of WordPress and CMS is to be able to create websites without having to do the coding yourself. You're exchanging one problem for another. You're instead of internationally the whole world. You don't have to know how to code HTML. You don't need to know how to do it. So exactly. So why it's favored over others is because so many people use it that for every problem out there, for everything that you might want to do, there is either a plugin or a thing that already exists. So if you're using one of the smaller ones now, they might not have a big community. They might have a smaller list of things that you can do there. So maybe one day you need to add a certain functionality. Maybe your website might be going too big and you might need to find a solution for a particular thing. If you're using a smaller platform, you might go and search for that solution. You won't find it. You might have to go and manually code it or add that functionality to your website by yourself. But on WordPress, there's nothing that you look for that you will not find. Maybe your website gets hacked today. You just go, they have a store. You just search for maybe the type of hack or the type of security you're looking for. You see that solutions are already there. And apart from it being there, you have so many options to choose from. So maybe this solution gives you this advantage and that disadvantage. The solution focuses on that. You can find a solution that is specifically tailored to your own needs on WordPress. So it's the difference between you and the solution to your problems in WordPress is usually just a simple search. Once you search for a solution, you will find it. Anything you want to do, you just need to search for it and you will find it, and that's it. So that's why WordPress is usually a better option. Okay, so are you asking for the best like software to use? Okay. So when you're coding with HTML, there's an environment you use. There's actually several options. You can use VS Code, that's Visual Studio Code. You can use Sublime Text. You can actually also use Notepad because at the end of the day, all these codes are just text files. It's all just characters, numbers, letters, alphabets that's inside. So you can actually code on Notepad. Only thing is that Notepad is not created for coding. So if, for example, you have an error, Notepad will not let you know. It will you just be typing away. It's blind. It will not let you know. It does not know what you're doing. So you need to be really good at what you're doing if you want to use Notepad. But if you're using VS Code or Sublime Text, the moment you write a line that does not follow any of the rules, it will underline it for you. If you don't need to click. Once you hover your mouse over it, it will tell you what you did wrong, and most likely to give you an idea of what to do in order to make it work well. So that's the difference between using an actual coding software just Notepad. Does that answer your question? But if there's any part of it that I didn't touch on, consider let me know. I'll do my best. All right, so that brings us to the end of this section. Let's move on to the next. Interesting. Okay, welcome back. So I will try and keep this next one short so that we can have a lunch break. We've already talked about the basics of HTML and CSS in the previous section, so we will just go into a little bit more detail here so you can get a stronger understanding. Overview. In this session, we will explore the fundamentals of web development, focusing on how HTML structures a web page and how CSS styles and enhances the appearance. The agenda will start with the introduction, then we'll go into the structure and elements. Next, we'll go into CSS basics as the styling and layout. Next, responsive design principles. And finally, a practical. We will build a small, simple web page so that you can get a feel of how it actually goes. Introduction. What are HTML and CSS? It defines the structure of the web page. That's HTML. CSS styles and enhances the visual. And together, both of them work together in order to make the web page beautiful and filled with all the design that I see. Why do we learn HTML and CSS? Because one, it's essential for web development. It provides control over web page structure and appearance, and it is used in building interactive and responsive websites. Now, this is the HTML page structure, which I believe I've shown you something similar before. Always start with your doc type, which indicates that this is a HTML document. Next, you have your HTML tags. Inside your HTML tags, you have your head and your body. Inside your head, you have your metadata, which shows first web page. And inside the body, you have what is actually displayed on the website. These are some of the elements that you might need for your web page. You have your headings, H1 to HC, H6, your paragraphs, your links, your images, and your lists, unordered lists and ordered lists. And when I talked about unordered lists and ordered lists before, I did not show you the tags used for them. An unordered list is using this UL stands for unordered list, exactly. And then the item, whatever comes in between here is what is going to actually display. You have an unordered list. Then inside here, as you can see, you have an unordered list, unordered list. This is where it opens, this is where it closes. Inside the unordered list, you have the list item, LI, open and close. Inside this list item, that's where you have the item. So if you have more items to add to the list, after this list item closes, you now put another list item again, the item. And to make it easier to look at, you don't have to put it all in one line. You can have your unordered list, list item, list item, list item. In the same way how you have HTML, head, body, you can have an ordered list inside this item, this item. So it makes it very nice and structured for you to work with. And the same works with ordered lists. Only difference is that for ordered lists, it will be ordered from 1 to whatever number you're going to. CSS basics. I think this is good because it gives you a full visual of the syntax of CSS. First, you have this is what targets the elements you are working with. So you find the elements, in this case you have body, and then these are the actual stylings, background color, font family. Same for this. They are targeting page 1, which is heading 1. If they are working with this, for example, page 1, so it would change the color to dark blue. Text align center. Bring the text from wherever it is on the horizontal thing, put it in the center for you. For the paragraph, bring the font size to 16 pixels. PS stands for pixels, and the color will be green. So this is how CSS code looks like. Now, there are different types of CSS depending on how you are building your page. If it's a small page, or if you just want to style a particular element, you can use inline CSS. Inline CSS is used to apply a unique style to a single HTML element using the style attribute of the element as shown. So if you have, in this case, this is a H1 tag, you have a heading that says hello. You see this style equals color blue. Style starts with double quotes, closes with double quotes. So this is your styling, and this is the attribute style. There are different attributes in HTML. Style is just one of them. Style is used for styling or CSS. So when you start styling, you select the color. If you notice, the syntax is the same as what you had here. See, color blue, or rather, it is color gray. That's how you have color blue. But this one is not inside the same structure as that one. This one is inside the HTML itself. So this style is only going to apply to this particular H1. Meanwhile, if you use this one, if there's multiple H1 tags on that page, all of them will use that style. So that's inline CSS. Next, we have internal CSS. Blended in, but still, internal CSS is used to define star for a single HTML page. It is defined in the head section of an HTML page within a style element. So this is a HTML page, job type, HTML, open, close. Now, as it says, it is defined in the head section. Remember, I said the head section is used to find things that are not necessarily part of the web page. They just describe and help it arrange things. So your styling can go inside the head using the style tag, open and close. And inside of this tab, it keeps the same syntax. You see this? You see this syntax? It's the same syntax that's used inside here. The selector, it selects the elements, then it takes the attributes and the value. So it selects the body, which is the whole page. The background color it assigns to. So for a page like this, the whole color of the background will be page 1, that's heading 1, is going to assign also blue to it. The paragraph, the color of the text will be red, and that's how internal CSS works. It is not inside the HTML. It will not be inside, if you don't have HTML here, but it's not inside the HTML tag. It is defined in the head and then targets them by using the type of tag, body, page 1, and paragraph. That's the second type of CSS. The third type is external CSS. An external style sheet is used to define the style for many HTML pages. To use an external style sheet, add a link to it in the head section of each HTML page. So you have a HTML page. Once again, it happens in the head section. Instead of defining all the styles here using the style tag, you just use this command. It's called a link. You link it. This rel here is just telling you what type of link it is. And the type is style sheet, CSS styles. So you can have a different file that just has styles inside. Only thing inside is just styles. Then you link this file to that file using this command. And then inside href is the path to that file. So if it's in a different folder, you need to, for example, if it's in your main folder /styles/ the name of the file, that path to that file was going to go inside it so that you can find that file and apply the styles in that file to your page. So inside the file, you still have this exact same styling syntax. Only difference is that it's now located outside the page, inside its own page. So that, and the thing about external CSS is if you have a big website that has many pages, you don't have to style each page individually, especially if they are sharing the same thing. That's why it's important to have a theme or a template you're working with, so that all of them can share the same style sheet. So all of them will have the same line pointing to the same styling, and the same styling will just apply to all of them. CSS box model. In CSS, the term box model is used when talking about design and layout. CSS box model is essentially a box that wraps itself around every HTML element. It consists of the contents, which is the actual text or image inside of an element, the padding, which is the space around the content, borders, which is the edge of the element, margins, which is the space outside the border. Now, this visualization will help you understand how each element actually appears in HTML. Let's use this heading as an example. If this heading was, if we were to view it in HTML, to have all of this content, that CSS box model would be the content, it would be inside here. Your padding is the space outside of it, right here. Your border is where the element actually stops, which means each element is inside a sort of container. And the border is the edge of the container. The padding is the space between the container and the element itself, while the margin is the space outside of the container. So sometimes you need to give distance between your item and other items on the web page. That is the margin. So even if you have two things side by side, two elements side by side, there's a margin between them. That space will always exist. This is the border. It's not at this border that the next element will start. It's after this margin that it will start. So this is how every element appears in CSS HTML2. Layout techniques. So CSS offers various layout techniques for different types of page layouts. And the layout is basically just how the page is arranged. I put this image here to give you an idea. So most web pages actually use a similar layout like this. At the top, you will have the title, then you have the banner. You might have some buttons, home, authors, contact us, and all those kind of things. You might have a logo here, and maybe some buttons here that will open the menu. At the side, if it's a dashboard, you might have your profile picture and maybe some things you can do. This is the main part of the page that will have whatever content it is supposed to be displayed on the page. Then at the bottom, you have the footer, which will just usually contains details about whatever platform or company or whatever it is that owns the site. So if it's a government website, for example, it will have details about it, maybe Ministry of so or whatever, it's all going to appear here at the bottom. So the different types of techniques, we have float and clear. Historically, this is used for positioning elements horizontally, allowing them to float within their container and wrap text around them. So what this means is that for this layout technique, elements can float inside. Remember I told you just now on this slide, elements exist inside this kind of structure. This itself is the content. This is the border. You can actually set it to move up and move around inside its container using different, well, we'll get to that exactly, but you can make each element inside of its container and adjust adding the border, not the border. You can actually adjust the border and also the margin. So that's where float and clear comes in. Next, we have Flexbox. Flexbox is a one-dimensional layout module designed for creating flexible and responsive layouts, aligning elements in rows or columns. Now, Flexbox, basically, if you have multiple elements you're trying to display on a page, especially if it's in a list form, Flexbox will allow you to have them side by side by side by side by side, all across the width of the page, or going down, but you cannot have it both ways. You have to pick either horizontal or vertical. You can't have both, and you can't have them mixed up anyway. If you want that, that's where it comes in CSS Grid. CSS Grid is a two-dimensional layout module for creating complex and flexible layouts with rows and columns. So if you have many things you want to display, some can be here, some can be here. It basically arranges your page into a table so that anything that you want to display at any part of the page, you can just target that particular row and column, place the item inside there, and it makes it very easy to arrange and create your page layout. Modern, simple web page. Okay, so this is actually the practical I was talking about. Let me try and set up my laptop so that I can show you my screen and how to actually do some of these. Here, one minute.
This meeting is being recorded.
Person. Okay, so I will now show you how to create a basic HTML and CSS page, and also show you, we will tweak the page a little bit so that you can see all the changes you can make to a page and how to set it up. So this environment right here is called cPanel. This is the file manager. As I said before, a website resides on a server, and from here you can create the files that you want inside the website. So I have created the index page, that is this right here. This is from cPanel. So I'm creating this one. I'm creating one from this live on the server. Yes, yes. I'm connected to the web server of the office, and I'm creating this file from there. I can do it locally, but I won't be able to connect it for you guys to see. So I'm doing it live so that you can see. I'll also create an environment by the end of the training so that you can also test out anything you want to test. Be up for a week. So if there's any part of this training that you want to practice or help yourself with, you'll be able to do that. So starting with this now, this is the file manager. This is the index page. When you open a website, the first page that loads is the index page. Let me show you. So you can edit the page. So it's just the text editor. You can type anything inside. But remember, we have the syntax that we need to follow, which is starting code. So can everyone see this clearly? All right. So if you remember, the first thing in any page is the doc type HTML. Under that, we have the HTML tag, which signifies the start of the HTML on that page. And it also closes at the bottom, HTML. Next, we have the head tag. This is the head. On the head, we have this line here just tells you what type of characters you're using on your website. Ignore this, the second one is not so important, but the next one is important, which says title my first web page. Now look at the top here. All these tabs, they all have writing on them. This one has dashboard, this one has index.html. It is anything that you put on this title here that appears on this tab. So by the time we open this page, because we'll be doing that in a bit, you will notice that at the top here, it will display my first web page. Then this right here is the link I was speaking about in my last presentation. This is a link to an external CSS file. You have the link, you have the type of link, which is style sheets, and you have the href, which is where the file is stored. Now, I've not created this file because I want you to see how it's created. So you just go to your file manager, you can create a random file, you will name it anything. In this case, I'll name it style.css. Create a new file. As you can see, it's now there. The file is now there. Now we need to link this index.html file to this style.css file so that by the time it's displaying the page, it will be able to collect the styling from this other page. So inside your HTML file, it's already there, actually, href styles.css. So this is now connected. The two pages are now connected to each other. Now moving on to the content of the pages. You have the body, which opens here and closes down here. So everything in between there, which is all these headers and all this other stuff, are the content of the page. The first thing we have is the header. Now, remember the page layouts I was talking about before. At the top of the page, you always have a header. So on the header, we have a welcome to my website heading. As you can see, the heading is inside the header. This right here is the heading. Page 1 opens, the content, welcome to my website, and then it closes. So that is the heading. Under that, we have a navigation bar, which is what usually contains all those navigation links I was talking about if you want to navigate to other parts of the page. And inside it, since you have many links, it's a list. And since it's just a list of links, they don't need to be numbered, they don't need to be ordered. So you can unordered list. Here we go. You unordered list open, unordered list closes here. And inside the unordered list, you have link item, list item, sorry. This is a list item. It opens here and it closes there. This is another item. This is the second list item. So the first list item is a link to the about page. The second one is a link to the contact page. And inside this href, you put the location of the about page and the contact page. Now, let me save this so that you can see what this actually looks like. Now, I'm doing this on this domain, ab.upgradedera.com.ng. And if you refresh the page, this is a very basic website, but as you can see, everything that we have on this page is displayed there. First off, we have the header saying, welcome to my website. And it displays here, welcome to my website. At the top of the tab, we have my first website. Can you see where the mouse pointer is? Where I'm clicking right now, it says my first website, and that is coming from this title here. So it is coming from this title, my first web page. Then under that, we have a list, an unordered list with list items, two list items, this and this, about us and contact. That is what we have here, about and contact. And as you can see, it's only the text that is showing about and contact. Meanwhile, on this side, there's all of these other parts of it, LIA, href, all of this. All of this does not display. The only thing that displays is this and this. What goes inside here, this hashtag about, is the link to the about page. And you can test it by coming here you hover over about, I don't know if you can see what's at the bottom, it's not showing on this, but when you click it, it will try to go to that page. As you can see, it has reflected here. Go to whatever page was linked to this, but now I've not actually linked it to any page, which is why it's not changing anything. So that's that. Other parts of the page, you have a section saying about me, and this is a simple web page to practice web design. And here it is about me. This is a simple web page to practice web design. Let me also zoom this. And that's basically how it continues for the rest of the page. So everything on this page is what's reflecting here. Now, this is how the page looks when you just use HTML. If you remember, HTML and CSS work together because HTML will just show the structure of what is on the web page. Right now, what you're seeing is the raw web page. To make it beautiful and add styling to it, you need CSS. And in the file, we have linked it to the CSS file here. Link to this style sheet, styles.css. Now you can go and add some styling to that file. Here's the file, styles.css. You edit the file. You can now copy your CSS code. So this is what the CSS code looks like inside the CSS file. As you can see, it is just styling for different parts of the page. You have the body, it applies this styles to the body. Font family, it gives it this font, it gives it zero margin, it gives it zero padding, and then it applies this color to it. Now, right now, it's impossible to tell which color that is because that is just the hex code version of the color. But when we switch to the main view, you'll be able to see what color it is. So that's for the body. We have another style for the header. We have another one for the list items, and basically all the items of the page. So save this page now, and you reload this page. Note how the page is going to change. I gave the wrong styles with CSS. So you can see how small errors like this. Let me just use this opportunity to emphasize that when you're coding, it's very important to file names, document names are very important because right now I just missed the letter S. This letter S that I just highlighted, I missed it in the name and it's no longer the styling. So everything has to correspond. So once I rename the file and flex styles.css page, you'll be able to pick up the styling. So can you see that? It is no longer looking like the raw web page. It's now a bit more structured. You have the header is actually a header. You have two links here, and you have some things on the body about me contact. So this is how HTML and CSS work together in order to make you have a page that works well, it's well designed. So, is there any question about any part of this process? And would you like me to provide you this code that I use for this so that you can test out?
Most putting to limit delay of sales.
Yes,
We don't need to work with policy. Very good if you have all these things. Because this last aspect that you just demonstrated, I wish to if it's only that one that master very well to really people going to see that this is what mention. So the state
Right, that's good. But let me just say now that the whole idea of this, at the end of the day, like I said, a platform will be available to practice. But the platform, that particular one that will be leaving open for 1 week, will not be this one. It will be WordPress. Because WordPress is what would benefit you more. This is raw HTML and CSS. You most likely won't need this because there's no point going into learn how to do all this hardcore coding and have a platform that does it for you. This is just to give you an idea of what is actually going on in the back end of all those things. So this is purely for demonstrating purposes. So this is how we build websites. And we have something called developer tools for your browser. And I want to use to show you the structure of
yes, the management of the there's no lights. So in the generator direction. So what we said we usually do is that the phone is the output for it. So, but for the stretch of 2 hours, they are phone. So what I just did here is that to be able to run over one. Yeah. So wherever we can stop by one, so we can faster. Unless you bring lights. Yes.
So towards the end of the last slides I did, I was talking about the structure of an element, the content, the padding, the margin, and the border. This is what we call the developer's tool. It's a toolbox on the side of the browser that allows you to view everything that is going on. So if you look at this side here, you can see HTML code. It shows you everything that is going on. This web page on the left is the rendered version of this code at the back. This code you're seeing here is an exact copy of what we have here. So it actually brings it out for you to see on the browser too. And apart from that, you also have the ability to look at the structure of any element. So if you select an element now, I want to stamp it to show you. Now remember the box model I was showing you about. You have inside, this is the exact same box I was showing you before. Inside, you have content, which is contacts and this email. Outside, you have padding. This green box is the padding, while this yellow box is small people that you imagine. The border does not exist per se. The border is just where this one stops, the other one starts. It's where your padding stops and your margin starts. So this line between green and yellow, there's no actual line, but the border between two of them is the border of your elements. So it's also writes it up here for you. All your styling that applies to this particular element. To show it to you, the color, fonts, the background. The margin, as you can see, there's a margin 10 pixels. That's this yellow. 10 pixels mean the screen is made up of little dots of color. Each dot stands for a pixel. So 10 pixels means there's 10 dots. So this little yellow space around it is made up of 10 pixels. That's the space around the element. So if there's another element now, as you can see, this next element starts after yellow. This is where this element now begins. But the actual element itself ends here. So this yellow space here is the margin. Next, we have the padding, which is this green. The padding is 20 pixels, which is why it's bigger than the margin, which is only 10 pixels. It's the space between the edge and the item itself. And inside of that, we have the content, which is this text, this text. So this is what the CSS box model looks like. And when you're arranging web pages, you see this content. In fact, let me show you how to move it around. You can increase the padding. You can actually move around the element inside 70 pixels. So if I set padding to 70 pixels now, can you see how much bigger that green area is? It is now, it pushes everything out. It increases the padding. If I increase the margin to 50 pixels and highlight it, you can see that the margin is now a lot bigger. Before, these two spaces were smaller and there was not much space between this and this. Now it's taking up almost the whole screen. So that's how you can, really manipulate all the structure of the page. If you want a particular element to appear here, you can use it. You can actually, what I did just now was increase the padding, just the padding. And if you do just padding, it will be for all 4 sides. You can actually increase or reduce the padding for just one side. Padding left, padding right, padding top, padding bottom. So if you want to move this text in center around this whole area, you can do that by just manipulating these figures here, padding and margin. So, like I said before, this is just padding. I have padding left, that's padding type left, 70 pixels. You can apply that padding to just the left. So that's how CSS works. So the same works with the background. You can change background. Remember, for colors in CSS, there's 3 ways you can represent colors. The first way is by simply writing out the name of the color. So if I change this white, it changes to red. Anything you change it to pick up that color. Orange. Now orange. But that's just one way of doing it. There are the other 2 ways of hitting colors are hexadecimal values and also RGBA, which is a mixture of different colors. So let's try both of those. If I see red now, notice it usually pops out this little, can you see this thing that's actually red? If you click on it, it will open this. And this gives you the full spectrum of colors. As you can see, everything is represented. You have right now text. So if you click any part of it to show you the hex value, as you can see, this value here can change. If you want blue, you can just shift over to blue and click anywhere to give you the hex value of blue. And just like that, you have selected it. So now you can see it's no longer saying blue. It's giving us the exact hex value of this particular shade of blue. So that is the second way to indicate colors. The third way is RGBA, which is any color, all the colors are based off of three colors. There are three primary colors: red, green, and blue. So there are three colors, and all the other colors are basically a mixture of those three colors. So what RGBA does is it tells you the exact mixture of those three colors that are to produce that color that you are using. If you are using this color now, it's using red 132, green 126, and blue 45. This last value here is what we call opacity. Now, you can see these two. We have two bars here. We have two bars here. This is for the color. This is for the opacity. These three values control the color. This value controls the opacity. The opacity is talking about how transparent that color is. So right now it's set to 1. 1 is full and 0 is all the way like at this end. So if you move this down here or if you change this value to 0, the color will become transparent. You will not even see it. Let me demonstrate. So you can either, and since your only two values are 0 and 1, everything in between is a decimal. So you can put 0.5, 0.5, and it will make it half. Can you see it just reduces to half? If I take it back to 1, it's full color. If I take it to 0, no color, because it's not fully transparent. So that's how RGBA works. So you can pick any color you want, increase the opacity so that it stays. As you can see, the more you increase it, the more visible it becomes. 0 for nothing, and 1 for everything. So that's how color works. That's the third way to indicate your colors. Then borders. Normally, your borders do not show. But if you want your border to show, you use your border, or within the border radius, you can just create the border tab. Border. So you can make your border 5 pixels, for example, and just like that, you need to add the color also, so black. Like, hold on. Okay, so as you can see, a border has not appeared. It might not be visible, so let me change the color to something visible, red. So as you can see, this now has a border, and you can increase how thick you want the border to be using these pixels here. So right now it's on 5 pixels. You can increase it to 15 pixels now. Can you see? Increases. You can increase it to 25. That's how much. Okay, yes, 25. And now your border is visible. But by default, this border does not usually render when the page is being put together, unless you set it up to display like this. So this time, when you have it like this, it gives you an idea of where the element is starting and ending, and where the next element is starting. So that is it for Kccl and CSS. And note that when you change it like that inside the web page from here, it does not affect your code here. It doesn't change it. This stays how it is. So when you refresh your page, you reload this page, it won't reload this design that you did because it's temporary. It will reload the original version of the page that's still here. So let's try it and see. So now I have changed this page to look like this. If I reload it, it will discard all the changes I made, and it will come back to the normal way it is. So this is how it all works. We can move on to the next slide. Are there any questions? Okay. Advanced styling and JavaScript. JavaScript basics. Advanced styling techniques and JavaScript basics involve CSS and JavaScript to create dynamic and interactive web pages, including manipulating styles, handling events, and building complex user interfaces. So what we will be doing in this section, there's still more on CSS. Like I said, it's a very deep topic. So we'll be talking about flexbox and grid, which is what helps you arrange and structure your page. JavaScript basics, which helps you create interactivity and makes it more alive. Adding even more interactivity, that's what I just said. And then the best practices and common mistakes. Understanding flexbox. As I said before, the flexbox is a one-dimensional layout and it's used for designing responsive and dynamic layouts. So it only ever goes in one direction. There isn't flexbox to arrange elements on the page. You can either go horizontally or vertically. You can't have some going this way, some going down, unless you define them separately. But if you have one flexbox, inside of that flexbox, it's just going to be one direction. Key concepts. The flex container is basically the structure of the flexbox. And the first thing is the flex container, which is this purple line. It is what contains everything that is inside the flexbox. The next is the flex items, which is the actual elements. These would be elements. If it's on the page, this would be elements. So this might be a paragraph. This might be another paragraph, or it might be in this, for example. I think the page that I just worked with now has two list items. So it's something similar because remember they were all on a line. So this is how they are structured, one after the other. Then we have the main axis and the cross axis, which determines the direction and alignment. Right now, the direction is this way. If you are doing it downwards, your direction is going to be downwards. And finally, we have the flex properties, which is the flex, the justifying, and the aligning. So if, for example, all these elements exist in this way, but you want to move them around, or you want to define whether they're on the left, so move all the way to the edge, or to the right, or to the top, or to the bottom. That's where all these properties come in. So you can use that to really fine-tune how the appearance is going to be. Best use cases for flexbox. The first one is navigation bars, which is the one that I actually just showed you. The next one is centering elements around vertically and horizontally. And the third one is creating flexible card layouts, which is actually what we just saw on the previous page. So understanding CSS grid. CSS grid is a two-dimensional layout system that enables precise placement of elements. Now, the flexbox, which was the previous slide, as I said, that one is just one direction, either sideways or downwards. With the CSS grid, can you see this at the top? This will give you an idea of how the grid is, because you can have it going sideways and it also goes down by one. So it's an actual grid. So the first thing you have is the grid container, which is the parent element that holds the grid items. Just like the previous one, it had a container. So there's an imaginary container around all of these items that holds them together. After that, you have the grid items, which is each of these items. Each of them represents an element, and each of them is a grid item. Next, we have grid lines, which is, imagine this was a table now. You would have lines here, 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 and across that separate each of the elements. That's the grid line. And the grid properties are what will actually allow you to customize and determine the small details like the margin, the grid gap, and the grid size. So that's it about CSS grid. Use cases for CSS grid. First use case is if you're designing a complex page layouts, like the entire web page, which creates sections. So this is the basic web page now. This page does not require much of the layout. You just have this and this. But there are some web pages that have so many things going on that you might need to be able to target in very, very specific parts of the web page. Really help you with that, because imagine this was a grid and you want to place something here. Instead of going to HTML and if margin and padding and trying to shift everything so that something appears where you want, you can just target this part of the page using grid system and place whatever you want inside that. Next, you are working with both rows and columns and meaning fine control over their sizing and alignment. It's basically the same thing. You're working with rows and columns, so it allows you to specify which one or which position you want any elements to go to. The third one is creating responsive layouts where control over the grid units instead of the short. So the keyword here is responsive, which means that if your screen size changes, it will need the web page also need to change in order to rearrange everything. And if you're using a grid system, when you're arranging, you can just pick something up from here and move it here. You cannot using a grid because you know how to start. You have to either delete the element and recreate it here or something else. That's too long. With grid, you can simply just change the row and column where it is. So you just take it from here to here. If something is here on the web page, we're now using a screen that's here. You can just take it from here, place it here, and just like that, your whole page is rearranged. JavaScript. Now we really delve into JavaScript. What is JavaScript? It is the programming language that makes web pages interactive. Now, why do we use JavaScript? First, that's very powerful because JavaScript has access to your whole web page. Remember before I said PHP happens on the web server, it does whatever it needs and sends the page to the browser. But when it reaches the browser, JavaScript is now what has the power to change and access everything on the web page. So JavaScript allows developers to create engaging and interactive websites and applications with dynamic content, animations, and user interfaces. The second use is, or rather, the second reason is ease of use. JavaScript is known for its relatively simple syntax, which makes it easier for developers to learn and write simple, particularly for those new to web development. Now, programming languages are typically very hard to learn and to use. Because you have to learn, you have to go deep to understand how it works and how to do certain things. But JavaScript is a relatively easy language. You don't need to go too deep into programming to be able to learn how to manipulate things you see on your web page. So ease of use comes in really, really handy. Thirdly, we have asynchronous programming. JavaScript's asynchronous nature allows for efficient handling of tasks without blocking the user interface, resulting in smoother and more responsive applications. Now, your typical web page, once you open the web page, it will load and stop loading. And whatever is on the web page at the time it stops loading is what is going to be there permanently. That is the web page. But I'm sure you've seen by now, most websites these days, things are moving around, pop-ups are coming at different times. You can just be doing something pop-up. That is called asynchronous programming because it means that everything is not loading at once. The page is loading at different times. So even if the page is loading and something new occurs that requires this text change, the text can change without having to reload the page. During my example, when the style was not loading and I kept on reloading it, it didn't pick up the new styles. But there isn't asynchronous programming now. JavaScript will be able to go to the back end, pick up whatever new information is available for the web page, and then change the content of the web page without you having to reload the web page. So it's very powerful and makes the website really responsive. Next slide. So JavaScript, these are the main components of JavaScript. The first thing is functions. Functions are basically blocks of code that are designed to perform particular tasks. So for example, the one example of JavaScript we had before was the click of a button. When you click a button, something happens. So JavaScript is a language, you say, okay, this button, when it's clicked, do this. This animation, when this happens, move here, do this, do that. That's the function. Variables. There's three types of variables, but we're not getting to that right now. What you need to understand is what exactly a variable is. A variable is something that holds a piece of data. So, for example, you're inputting data into your website. It can be a number, it can be a piece of text, it can be a name. That needs to be saved somewhere. So a variable is like a container that holds that data. Now, anything you want to do with that data, that container will carry it to where it's needed. And that's what a variable is. Data types just means, so for example, these two work hand in hand. Variables have data types. So a variable can be a string, it can be a number, it can be an object, it can be an array. A string is a collection of characters. It's not a number, it is not text. It can have structure. It's literally a string of characters. So it can be, this is a string. You have an apostrophe here, which is or rather a single quote here, which is a special character. You have a comma. You have, you have, uh, you have numbers. Let me just try and not to say it anymore. So the string basically just allows you to hold four types of data types together. But there are other types of data types that are specific. So for example, you can have an integer which is just numbers. You have characters or alphabets inside an integer now, it won't work. You can vary. So that covers data types. Very useful. Yes, so let's continue. So that's strings. The other type of data is numbers, and as the name implies, it's numbers. I only work with digits from 0 to 9. The third one is arrays. And an array is basically a list of different things. If you have a list of data that you're trying to handle, instead of just one, put that inside an array. It has different functions that will help you manipulate that data easily. And the last one is an object. Now, an object is a whole different topic all on its own because an object basically defines, it takes sometimes a real life object and it tries to create a version of it. So if, for example, on a web page, everything you see, every element is an object. You can have a button, it's an object. If you're trying to show something on the web page that represents something in real life, you can create it as an object and make it behave how the object actually behaves. So it's a really large topic, so we'll stop there for now and get into it at a different time. Then DOM manipulation. DOM manipulation is basically the ability of JavaScript to change the content of a web page without it reloading. So you can, in the same way how CSS can change the styling and make it appear in a certain way, JavaScript can also do the same thing. All right, next. Adding interactivity with JavaScript, handling events. JavaScript events are actions or occurrences that happen in the browser. They can be triggered by various user interactions or by the browser itself. JavaScript can be used to program actions to be taken whenever and wherever you propose. Now, I don't know if you remember that small JavaScript tutorial I did when you click the button and try to change the color to red. So that button click is something we call an event. And an event is just something that happens in the browser. It can be scroll, it can be click, it can be press of a button. Exactly. Now remember, JavaScript deals with functionality. So all those events, when they happen, you need JavaScript to detect that an event has occurred and for it to decide what happens as a result of that event.
With operating for now. So because at 12 it's supposed to be but this election allow us to get I think we are having it. Yes.
Can we finish it?
Friday. Later we go there.
But there is no light.
So we can then come back by 2.
Yeah, very long. They have to start the practice by also of light.
But yet tomorrow is my own view. And it's not what for us.
I want to keep my seat.